Looking pretty good. All right, welcome, good evening. To open our meeting this evening, going to welcome up our PO navigator, Chad Paishan, to share a pule with us.
This pule we share with you is actually a chant that's called Okau Ola, about life, and this is to bring us all life in what we do and to continue the life that we live. Okau Ola ke aku
Mahalo, Chad. Thank you so much. All right, great crowd here this evening. Thank you all for being here. My name is James Eustace. I'm the president of the Waimea Community Association. Thank you all for joining us here. We're here at Tutu's house as we connect here in person and with viewers online. So they'll be viewing us through this camera here, and we're trying to share our screen up here as well, so you can see some of our guests that are joining us virtually, our presenters here. I encourage you always to follow, like, and subscribe to the Waimea Community Association social accounts. You can also find relevant information up on our website at waimeatown.org. We do strive to keep our accounts active and up to date as best as possible. And this evening, we're streaming both to YouTube and Facebook, and this recording will be made available later as well. And at this point, I would like to recognize my fellow WCA board members, my Vice President, Mary Beth Lachek, our Treasurer, Jeremy Madrid, our Secretary, Nancy Carr-Smith, and my fellow directors, Riley Smith, who I believe is up in the front there, greeting everyone. Lonnie Olson-Chong in the back will be our timer this evening. And David Greenwell over here. And Patty Cook over on the side here. I'd also like to welcome up our two new board members, Whitney Harvey and Chris Wong, who just share a couple words with me. So, Chris, if you just wanted to share a couple words about your love of WCA and Waimea and your willingness to join on a volunteer basis. Yeah.
Yeah, just very excited to be a part of this. Love the community we live in, and anything that we can do to help, we're very excited for it. So thank you for having us.
I'm Whitney. Hi. From Waimea, so of course I love it. It's a great place to live, and I'm grateful to be a part of this group who looked out for our community, and yeah, happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So we really appreciate, Chris, your dedication to Waimea, and then your willingness to join the Waimea Community Association, and then even share a few words of the community here. So thank you for that. And really expanding what we can do in the community. So appreciate those things you can offer us in the community. And on behalf of the Waimea Community Association Board, we're grateful for the support shown by the community to hold these meetings, whether they're online or here in person. So grateful for the opportunity to meet with all of you. And of course, thank you for your interest in joining in our past meetings, sharing those recordings, viewing those recordings, and just sharing your mana'o with us as well going forward. And we're also grateful for the generosity of Tutu's house. We're thrilled to bring our meetings back in person here and maintain these virtual components that you've been accustomed to over the past 2 years. So mahalo to the team there. The Waimea Community Association is a nonprofit organization. Our board is completely a volunteer board for volunteer members. We strive to promote the open participation by all of the Waimea community, develop leadership, and support the smart growth of the region. If you'd like to support the work that we have done, continue to help what our outreach and connecting the community, you're more than welcome to donate or join as a member. You can visit our website at waimeatown.org, or you can join us up in the front. Riley has some of those paperwork as well. Your contributions and your membership allow us to reach out to the community and connect in this setting and continue the work that we've done for the past 60 years or so now. So thank you. Our main focus this evening will be to connect with and learn about the ongoing efforts of Na Kalai Wa'a and their partner organizations, of course. We'll also be spending some time with our South Dakota police officers and our 2 state legislators who are on the call with us here this evening representing the Waimea area. We've also allocated some time for your questions, and we appreciate community members sending the questions ahead of time, of course. And for our viewers online, please use the live chat to pose your questions. We'll do the best we can to collect them and share them with our guests here this evening. And for those attending us in person, we do have some note cards if you'd like to use those, or please make yourself known to be recognized, and I can give you a chance to ask a question during those allotted times. So mahalo. So really to start things off, I'm going to welcome up Captain Jeremy Evangelista and Community Police Officer Justin Kabanting for a few updates. Welcome, officers.
Thank you. Let's see. So, a couple things I wanted to share before we get into our crime stats and stuff with Officer Kabanting. First of all, Officer Robinson isn't able to join us tonight, but I'm hoping he'll be at the next meeting, either in person or online. Wanted to say that at our last meeting, somebody made the suggestion for an addition to our newsletter about perhaps tagging some community areas where crimes are occurring. So say, for example, if the police department, if our Waimea, we say we had 4 burglaries, it would be helpful to know where might those 4 burglaries have happened. So Officer Robinson and the rest of the team has worked very hard to try and incorporate that suggestion into our newsletter. So when we push out our newsletter later on this month, probably next week sometime, please look for that. It's just a graphic. It's nothing really ornate or anything, but he did work really hard in trying to incorporate that suggestion. So kudos to him and the rest of the team. Also wanted to mention that late last month, someone tried to steal the ATM at Parker Ranch Center out in front of Spectrum. This is something that's been happening in other districts as well. So what we're trying to do is put the word out to our business community. If you have these standalone ATMs, especially outside of your establishment, do what you can to enhance security, like make sure your cameras are focused on it. Get us good leads so that we can solve these cases, because it typically happens when no one's looking. So we've been trying to reach out to the business community. It's mostly those standalone ATMs outside of somebody's establishment. And then also wanted to mention, which Justin will also mention, we did have a fatal traffic accident last month. Pretty sad. Vehicle was northbound on Queen Kahuna Highway at Waikoloa Road, Waikoloa Beach Drive intersection. They left the road, struck one of those big traffic poles. 2 people did not make it. So what I would want to take, what I want to encourage the community to take away from that is, let's not let what happened to them go unnoticed. Let's let it affect our driving behavior and encourage everybody to raise their expectations of what courteous and safe driving is. Let's remember to encourage our community to do that and set the example for everybody else. So with that, I'll turn it over to Justin for the crime reporting.
All right, thanks, Cap. Yeah, so just to piggyback on that, couple announcements. Spring break coming up for our Keiki. I'm gonna tell you what I tell my 5th graders, my dear students. Just be careful. They're gonna be out of school. They're gonna be out on the playgrounds. They're gonna be out and about with their parents. Just drive safely. Be cautious. In our newsletter, hopefully by Monday it'll be all ready to go. I'll push that out. But I'll get right into the crime trends for South Kohala for February. So we did have 1 assault, 4 burglaries.
6 criminal property damage investigations. And we had 12 theft investigations. We did 0 robberies, but we did have 2 unauthorized control of vehicles, so a stolen vehicle. And 4 drug cases in South Kohala District. And we did have 5 major incidences as well. To continue on with the traffic report, it's not fully completed yet, so I don't have the citation numbers, but what I can give you is we did have 8 major traffic casualties with the 1 fatal that the captain already talked about. We did have 8 last year, so we're kind of even with last year, February. None of them were DUI related, but our officers did make 4 DUI arrests this in February. So they're still out there. We also responded to 25 reckless driver calls throughout the district from Saddle Road down to Queen Kaumanu Highway and up Kawaihae Road. Our officers did initiate 6 abandoned vehicles and they completed 30 grant funded projects, whether they be speeding, distracted driving, seatbelt projects. So yeah, my advice is spring break. I tell my 5th graders because I want to see them after, because I'm going to be with them till the end of summers, to the beginning of summer. So yeah, that's all I got.
Any questions? No, nothing. Anybody have any questions? Sir.
Yeah, Captain, when does, just so everybody knows and maybe aware, but maybe you can just share when the spring break is and so on, like when the spring break starts. And I know it's
I got
different. And you also have like UH too, or is that different?
I'm tracking the public schools that I teach at, so it's gonna
Because
kick
I
off
think UH is different.
March 11th. I think that's a Saturday, and then it'll run all the way to the 19th. The 20th is the first day back. That's for my canoe flying students. So,
Thank you.
yeah, yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you, Captain. Thank you, Officer Kabano.
No, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, officers. Really appreciate what you're doing in the community for us here. And those traffic statistics, Officer Kabante and Captain Evangelista, they do attend the South Kohala Traffic Safety Meeting every month as well, and they provide those updates there. So if you're interested in that, those meet on the 2nd Tuesday of every month, and we're actually meeting in this space as well for a little bit, and then going to Waikoloa for that meeting. Let's see. All right. Wonderful. So we're going to move on to our next guests here. We're gratefully joined by both of our state legislators this evening. Wanted to give them an opportunity to update you and the community as we're about halfway through the legislative session here. So I'd like to start off with Representative Tarnas, if that was okay. We'll give him the floor here for a little while.
Thank you very much, and a pleasure to see everybody. I miss being at home. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, let's change the speaker to now.
So I wanted to update you on the legislative work we're doing here. I am grateful to be able to serve as your state representative, representing all of North and South Kohala. And I am chairing the Committee on Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs. And in that committee, we've been working on a number of different issues. I want to mention some of them. Department of Hawaiian Homelands, we're trying to move through different measures to help them spend the money that we appropriated to them last session, $600 million to help them build, acquire land, build new infrastructure, and get people on homestead land and throughout the state. I know there's about, of the 600 million, about 73 million is planned for Hawaii Island. In our community, we have a number of areas that are Hawaiian Homeland projects that are stalled because of primarily UXO removal efforts are still needed. You'll know out by the transfer station, there's that whole neighborhood that was built and they still haven't been able to move in. And they're trying to address that issue by sweeping for more unexploded ordinance so that the folks who would be able to get those lots would be able to get financing to build the homes. So they're still working on that. I've been urging them to move forward. It's taken way too long, but I'll keep working on that. There's been other bills too, the Department of Hawaiian Homelands has put in, and I've been hearing from folks in the community. I remember one bill that they were proposing to make some changes Kanani Kupuniai sent in testimony about it, said it was a bad idea. And I said, I'm sorry, DHHL, there's no way I can support this. I have to listen to my kupuna. Mrs. Kupuniai said it's a bad bill. It's a bad bill. So we deferred the measure and said, you have to go back and work with your beneficiaries. You need to get their support in order to move forward on these bills. So thank you, Kanani, for submitting testimony, and I make sure to listen to you. In terms of the bills that we're working on, a huge priority for me and the Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs Committee has been the bills that help to address and strengthen the laws in government reform, transparency, the Sunshine Law, addressing government fraud and campaign finance reform, election integrity, accountability, lobbying reform, disclosure, ethics. All of these areas, they're bills that we've been getting from the Campaign Spending Commission, the Ethics Commission, and the Commission to Improve Standards of Conduct. We've made it a priority in the State House to address these issues because last year we had 2 legislators, one former legislator, one sitting legislator, that were indicted for fraud. And it was just shocking and embarrassing. So we've been taking steps this session to address that, to try to make sure we improve the way we operate in the legislature and in state government to try to improve public trust. And so I've been taking the lead on it for the House. We have heard and moved out dozens of bills that address these areas I just discussed and get through the bills on the Campaign Spending Commission, Ethics Commission, and the Commission to Approve Standards of Conduct. It's been a successful effort. We've been getting a lot of coverage on it. If you're interested, I know the Civil Beat has covered it quite a bit, so I encourage you to take a look at that. They call me a gatekeeper for these bills. That's just because I happen to chair this committee, but we've been diligent about moving through these bills and approving bills to move them out and over to the Senate so that Senator Richards and his colleagues there can consider them. Some of the other bills that we're working on relate to, remember last session, there was even a push for a special session to address what was called the Obrero decision. And that was a Supreme Court decision that changed the way that the prosecutors would have to use in order to indict people who are accused of felonies. And it really disrupted the whole effort. They had to actually form grand juries in order to make that happen. We've addressed that issue. I'm using a Senate bill that came over to us, and we just heard that Senate bill in the House and approved it. It's now going to go to the floor. We're fast tracking it in order to send it up to the governor in the next couple of weeks. We're trying to make sure we meet the needs of the judiciary in order to move forward and be able to handle situations where we have potential felonies that they need to adjudicate. So we're taking specific fast efforts to deal with that. Another major bill relates to addressing a U.S. Supreme Court decision on that requires all states to come up with the system to approve concealed carry weapon licenses. And so in this state, all the different counties have been actually trying to do it on their own. And each of the counties was doing something different. So what they were asking was, could the state come up with a standardized approach so that every county wouldn't do something different? And so that's what we've done. We passed out a bill from the House. It's now going over to the Senate that sets a statewide standard for qualifications for getting a concealed carry weapons license and makes it applicable to all counties so that one who gets a concealed carry weapon permit in one county would be able to use it in another. We also set up sensitive places where you're not allowed to carry concealed carry weapons. It's still a bill that has to be considered in the Senate, and but we've taken, I think, very reasonable, fair approaches to this, using best practices from across the country and applying them here in the state. So that bill now goes over to the Senate. We've been doing a lot of other bills that help to reform our judicial system, to try to help to reduce our overcrowding in our prisons and jails, but also make sure that we are fair to those who have been charged with something. But we want to adopt best practices from across the country to how to deal with pre-trial detention and how to help people show up at their court hearing dates so they don't get hit with a bench warrant and have to go to jail because they're missed their court date. We've been taking very important steps to address and support domestic violence prevention programs, mental health services throughout the state, because we know that a number of folks who are repeat offenders, houseless people, they also battle mental health issues. So we need to boost our mental health services program and diversion of folks into those mental health services and substance abuse programs rather than send them to jail. And so we're working on that, making good progress. I'll mention a few other bills, but I know my time is wrapping up. We've taken measures to try to protect sports officials from assault and abuse when they do their jobs, because some folks get a little carried away at games and start to abuse the sports officials, the referees. So we're trying to do our best to take care of them. We're passing a bill to help shield journalists so that they can protect their sources and provide us with accurate information going forward. In terms of education, we're passing bills that help to improve our funding for school buses, because we don't have enough drivers to supply our school buses to get the children to school. And a number of cases, families where they don't have school bus transportation and they really need it. We're improving our farm to school programs. We're working on a program that's started in Waimea to help grow our own teachers from within the staff at our schools. And we're also got bills to improve and expand our broadband infrastructure, affordable housing, and support agriculture. Let me wrap up by saying that my priority capital improvement projects that I'm pushing for this year are funding for the Waikoloa Library, for construction, equipment, and everything necessary for a new public library that will include community-related programs and an early learning center. So I think that's going to be really important. I'm pushing for funding for Kanu Okaina Charter School to finish the multi-purpose building, which would include a certified commercial kitchen. We appropriated $1.8 million a year ago, but the funding, the prices have gone 2 years ago, but the prices have gone up so much, they need additional funding. And so we're seeking from that additional funding. And then finally, I'm pushing for funding that would build a new water main that would go from Alaohia Road out to Waimea Kohala Airport. Right now, it's a small pipe. We want to make it a larger pipe so they can produce more water, transport more water, so that it's available to fight fires that are coming in from that side of town. Right now, we don't have that capacity. There's a number of public construction projects that are moving forward. I can update you them through my e-newsletter. I encourage you to do that. The Waiaka Bridge, the Waimea Elementary Middle School Master Plan, Kawaihae North Small Boat Harbor, Hapuna Beach State Park water system replacement, the Waimea safety improvements through Kawaihae Road in town, and the Polulu Valley Lookout planning and design for improving that area. My time is up. I welcome everyone. If you want more information, email me, get on my subscriber list for my e-newsletter. And again, I'm grateful to be able to represent you at the State House and look forward to your questions and talking to you offline. Thanks very much. Back to you, James.
Thank you, Rep. Tarnas. Hello, Representative. So next up, welcome on our Senator, Senator Tim Richards. I'll pass the floor over to you. Welcome, Senator.
Hello, James, and thank you for the invitation. I think Representative Tarnas summed it up best. There's not enough time to go through everything. And so give a quick snippet of what we've been working on. We're right at, as Rep. Tarnas said, we're right at the halfway mark. We're getting close to the halfway mark. So we're getting to the point where we're going to be swapping bills between the House and the Senate. Kind of a last minute fervor as we get to that. First of all, let me touch on a few things. Currently, I sit on 4 committees: Agriculture and the Environment. I am vice chair of that. I sit on Commerce and Consumer Protection, Education, and Hawaiian Affairs. Most of the stuff I'll be discussing tonight are the things that are swirling around the committees that I sit on. Touch on a few things first. CIP, very happy to report that we've had 4 releases for our greater District 4 area. First of all, $50,000 was released for the Waimea vacuum cooling plant. There's a asbestos problem, because that's an old facility that needs to be cleaned up. And so that money has been released for that. Additionally, there's been $1 million released for the Honaka'a Elementary School to become ADA compliant. There's been $4 million that's been released for the Honaka'a Intermediate and High School, again for ADA compliance. And for Hamakua, and I'm sure the people in Lapahoiha are going to be happy, $5 million was released for the Papaloa Gymnasium. So very happy on those. Concerning the legislation, I think there's something 1,650 bills on the Senate side and probably very similar on the House side. So we're talking several thousand bills coming through. This is just a grab. What I decided to do was look at what came through this week for a third reading and getting ready to cross over. First of all, there's been a lot of concerns about illegal fireworks. And we did have Senate Bill 821 pass third reading, and we'll be going over to the Senate. The idea is to establish a task force to work on the illegal fireworks. We had Senate Bill 428, which is putting together or requiring that the counties come up with a comprehensive plan for cesspool conversion. Again, we have a 2050 deadline on that, still 30, not quite 30 years away, but we've got to get going on that right now. And it's going to take a lot of planning and then funding to get that done. Working on a visitor impact fee, how that is actually going to be function into our state as visitors come in to actually pay and help fund the use of our state parks, our other facilities within the state. We had a resolution come forth for Hawaiian cultural centers within, and this is coming through OHA side, again, to establish those. We have, and I've been working a lot of stuff concerning agriculture. It's no secret that agriculture is a passion of mine. And one of the things we worked on was to allow the Department of Agriculture to actually own land. And this is the first step so they can establish some of the ag parks going forward. There's also bills that didn't make it. And there's always questions from people, why did these bills go forward? There are two bills that were concerning the barrel tax, and they were called cash carbon or carbon cash bills, that the idea was to increase a tax for the use of fossil fuel with the idea that eventually we change the use of the fossil fuel. The problem with that is it would increase the cost of gasoline about 75 cents a gallon. And for maybe Oahu or the small counties, that could work, but for someplace like the Big Island, just didn't see that work. This is going to impact our community too much. Most of our people drive too far. Anyway, long story short, most senators agreed, and those bills did not make it through. There was also a bill concerning recycling, specifically as it related to electronic device recycling. And this was Senate Bill 793. The concern was that we don't have enough recycling for our electronic waste. However, there was an Act 151 from last year that was passed, and it was viewed that this year, this bill could be deferred because 151 hasn't come to fruition yet. It's just starting to take a hold. So even though it's a good idea for the electronic waste, this bill was deferred because we already have something in place and we need to let that work for the time being. And this is why some of these bills don't make it through, that something is already in process. It's not that it's a bad idea, but we have things going forward. So having more regulation is not the idea. We need to let things work before we start passing more laws or more rules. A lot of meetings. On the Senate side, for our different directors, we have Senate confirmations, and I have been meeting with quite a few people. Just this week, I met with Scott Glenn from Planning and Sustainable Development, Kathy Betts from Human Services, Keith Regan from who's the controller from DAGS, and Brenna Hashimoto with her deputy, Ryan Yamani from Human Resource. Again, all of these people are up for confirmation through the Senate. And this is a meet and greet, but also get an understanding and get a feeling of where they want to take their department, where they want to take their people, and how that department may be working. So it'll be coming up in the next probably month or so for confirmation. Other meetings I've had, and I'm a big one, just like back in council days, I like to go see it. I want to be boots on the ground. I want to see what's going on. This last week, I was able to go to EO Processing, which is a new slaughter facility in North Kona. I met our Congresswoman Jill Tokuda there, and we were able to tour the facility, get an understanding of their challenges, and see how we can help enhance and facilitate going forward to have the expansion of what they need to get done. Also this week, I went to Department of Agriculture here in Oahu and looked at their facility, what's going on there, and how they may take it. If we are serious about agriculture, like we say we are, we're going to have to put the funds and the support into the department like we need to do to get that going. A lot of help is needed at that department, so look forward to working on that. Some other things we've been working on was, again, lots of meeting. Rep Tarnas talked about Hapuna. Hapuna needs a lot of help. As you've seen in the newspapers, the water has been turned off there and not expecting to turn the water back on fully repaired for almost 2 years, and that's just not acceptable. I have discussed with them, I've talked to Dylan, the Parks Department, and we are going to be pushing hard to get the emergency water restored. I'm hoping within the next couple of weeks. I've talked to the county. Because it is emergency repair, this is not full construction, it's just emergency repair. We should be able to streamline, get that done, and then look at the bigger project. Hapuna does need a lot of help. I've talked to Kirk Cottrell, who is the director of parks. The funding is there, so it's a matter of just getting these things done. Concerning my CIP, my request for funding for going forward for District 4, my number one request is for the extension of Danoke Highway. From where it is now at Mamalohoa terminates all the way down to Queen Kahumanu Highway, which there are many different versions, and Rep Tarnas can also weigh in on this. But the version I support highest is one that comes down, sort of has a touching to Waikoloa Village, and then continues on down as itself to the intersection right at the Waikoloa junction on the south side of Waikoloa Resort. Again, that will add another corridor, which would be very, very important for the economic engines of the Big Island. Couple other things I wanted to touch on was we are having a hazardous waste collection at the Kalani Park on Saturday, March 4th, and that's for household hazardous waste. And then also Sunday, March 5th at Pahoa Recycling. But again, this is Waimea centric. So with that, I think that touches on things, everything I wanted to touch on. And I am here, very happy to be here, very happy to represent you, and open for any questions.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate that. And then we can bring up both Rep Tarnas, if you don't mind, there, and we'll have both Senator and Rep on here. And I had one question that came online, and I can share it with the two of you. Let's see here. So it reads, our government's fear that it would take many years to recover from the now ending pandemic tilted their scales pro-development. Just the opposite happened, and one of the unintended consequences was that many people realized they could move here and still work there. As we watch the traffic counts mount in town daily and personally experience the lack of doctors, nurses, teachers, and facilities to support them, how can we only support growth that is linked to addressing these shortcomings as a real condition of such growth and not as an afterthought?
Hey, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll jump in first, just to say that, the planning for growth, zoning, the general plan, and community development plans is really done at the county level. So I'd encourage you to get involved at that level. From the state side, we have to look at, the state highways, make sure that we're addressing traffic safety issues. And that's why Senator Richards and I are really pushing for the funding to address some of those issues, whether it's Waiaka Bridge, Kawaihae Road improvements, and otherwise. But I want to also address, the issues of lack of healthcare professionals. I have been a strong supporter of exempting healthcare services, medicine from the general excise tax. And also we're moving through some other bills to try to support and retain healthcare professionals in town because we just don't have enough of them. I also were supporting bills that would authorize advanced practice registered nurses to do more work. my primary health care provider is an APRN, advanced practice registered nurse, because the doctor I had has left. So I think those are the sort of things that we're trying to do to help to meet these needs in our community. But in terms of the issue about growth and the development issues and where is it appropriate, I've been trying to support affordable housing development because that's really the priority. And we don't have enough affordable homes around to meet the needs of our community, our teachers, our firefighters, and that's what we need to do. So that's some of the answers to the question. If I pass it over to Senator Richards.
Yes, please,
Yeah,
Senator.
thanks, Rep. Just touch on that. We're talking about the capacity, and I appreciate the fact the concern is we don't have enough capacity in our traffic system to handle what we see coming through town. I get it. I have kids in Waimea school, and I'm stuck in that traffic when I'm taking the kids in. We have to work on the capacity, and that's something that the previous administration was not interested in doing. Going forward, that is where the state can help. As Rep. Tarnas has talked about, the planning and the general plan, that is all at the county level, but there are things that we can do specifically to the healthcare. There are bills coming through that are referencing telehealth to help us out, especially in our more rural districts, but the telehealth will help. I saw one resolution come through where they want to use phone consultation like we've done in a long time, except being able to compensate the health providers to do that. Again, it's a level of efficiency that can speed things up and help take care of some of the health needs. Not all of it, some of the health needs. As far as affordable housing, this has been ringing throughout the state for a long time now. Back in the 80s, we had 30,000+ units unfilled. Today, we could easily use that number of units. It has to do with the problem of building those units. One thing we're looking at for housing, and there's a bill for a pilot project coming through for education to build some teacher housing. And I'm trying to get Waimea in on that as a pilot project, working with Department of Health to get some accommodations made. If we're going to build tiny homes for teacher cottages, seeing if we can use a gang septic system based upon the number of bedrooms, not the number of households. And I have received positive on that. Again, we're trying to think outside the box to get some of this done. We've got to build more infrastructure capacity, meaning roads to handle the traffic that you're talking about. But then we also got to build more housing.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Rep. I've got a couple other questions here, and I'll try and take some here before we run out of time. Any quick updates on ranked choice voting?
Not out of the House. We made some improvements to our election security and electronic vote counting integrity and auditing. So that's what we've been focusing on. But we have not moved out a bill on ranked choice voting. I think it's a good idea, but there's not enough support in the House to move it out. I'm not sure what's happening in the Senate on that one.
I haven't seen anything in the Senate. I'm not aware of any bills that have been put forth on that side.
And just so people know, we already have passed a bill that has ranked choice voting for special elections. So that is something that's already on the books. But in terms of the overall system, that's not something that's been moving this session.
You know, I do want to give a shout out to the County of Hawaii. During our last election, the county did catch some attempted voter fraud on some. There must have been Xeroxed ballots that were put through, and the barcodes were picked up. And so I have to, again, give a shout out to our county. They were able to keep that process very secure.
Thank you. Another question here. Today we just had a big tree that crossed, and it was on, I think it was on private property that crossed the state highway here in Waimea and jammed up our traffic. So I know, Senator, when you were on the council, you kind of dealt with this one before the roads had swapped over, and Rep. Tarnas as well at the state level. Is there any sort of support or some project to be had about removing tall trees along state highways, even though they may some sort of connection with private property issues there? How do we manage that?
If DOT sees that there's a tree that is threatening the safety of the roads, then they already have the authority to go in and at least cut the tree that's coming, cut the parts of the tree, the branch of the tree that's coming over the road. As to taking out the trees that are on private property, that's a whole nother matter. And I don't foresee us giving DOT the ability to go and onto private property and take out a tree just because it might fall over. There's some takings issues there and private property rights that might be a problem. But if it's a nuisance tree that threatens the road, I think that's something that the DOT highways certainly would have the authority to move in on. That's my understanding.
And I'll just echo on that. DOT has been working, again, this is for our state side. If you think about some of the roads that we have tree corridors, they have done that. They've done cleaning of the trees or trimming of the trees, the overhang, as Rep. Tarnas was talking about. So they are working on it, but we have roads with trees on them. And if we take all the trees down on all the roads, I think we're going to have a pushback on people not wanting all the trees removed. So it's a give and take. I know Kohala Mountain Road's been closed a couple of times these last couple of weeks with trees coming down across. Maintenance, but if we have trees and the weather, especially this last week and a half, 2 weeks, we're going to have some trees coming down. Our biggest problem is we don't have alternative routes, especially through the rural district. So that's where we see the problems.
Thank you. We had we'll take one more question. Nancy, did you have a question you wanted to share?
I did, Rep. Tarnas, regarding the term limits issue, why did you, as chair of the Judiciary Committee, defer the vote on that topic, even after hearing public testimony?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Nancy. When I ran for office, I was asked numerous times in surveys about my opinion on term limits. And my opinion is that I don't support term limits because that's why we have elections. And in the House and the Senate, in the last 10 years, we actually we've replaced over 50% of the representatives and 50% of the senators through the elections. So I know elections can work. And so that's where I have been focusing. I personally don't support term limits. I talked to all the different members in the House. There is not support for term limits. And so I chose not to move that bill forward. People have criticized me for it, but it's what I've been saying I've been at this business for a long time. It's been my position all along. It was my position throughout the entire campaign. So I'm being consistent. And so if people disagree with me, I recognize that we have difference of opinion, but I have been consistent in my opposition to term limits ever since I've started running for office 30 years ago.
Thank you, Representative. David, do you have a question? Last question here.
Yes, this is sort of an old question, but what's being done about recycling plastic to oil? Anything happening here in the island or in the state about trying to get this all this plastic in the ocean and turn it into oil, and in our dumps and everything, we have stopped recycling plastic. That's going backwards.
Yeah, and I know what you're talking about, David. It's an interesting technology. It's not something the state is pursuing. The county is the one that's responsible for the recycling program, and it has been a challenge. I am frustrated about that, but if private sector wants to step forward and start to implement the technology you're talking about, I'm all for it, but I don't know about putting public money into it. I'll see what Senator Richards has to say about that, but that's my position on it.
Yeah, coming from county, I chaired environmental management, and then here at the Senate, I'm also on environment. The point is well taken. And we do need to do something with our waste. We have to cut down our waste stream. We have to better manage it. We run into economies of scale and the efficiencies of recycling, meaning it costs more for us to recycle than the value of what we are recycling. We're running into a problem. Big Island has been very reluctant to do a waste to energy program like Oahu has done. So that also causes an issue for us as far as eliminating the plastics. We have to separate the waste streams if we are going to recycle them. That's one thing we have to face and figure out how to get that done if we're going to do that. And I think there's probably more value in recycling or remanufacturing, say, of the plastics, not for high value plastics, but one thing I was looking at was making plastic fence posts. It doesn't have to look real pretty, but we can use that. If we have this resource, maybe we can do something along those lines. I agree with Rep. Tarnas, though. It's going to have to be a private industry. Government can help facilitate, get that going, but I think it's going to have to be private to come in and step in to actually run an industry like that.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Rep. I know there is kind of talking about that in terms of finding a new source for the plastic. I know DOT was seeking a pilot project about using some plastic waste for road surfacing. I don't know if that has moved forward at all, and if they've had any success with that. If you've heard, I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
I've heard of the program. I don't know the current status of it, but yes, they are working to try to incorporate both recycled glass and plastic into road surface material. Yes.
I haven't seen anything on the Senate side coming forth, but I'm aware of the program.
Well, thank you, Senator. Thank you, Representative. We really appreciate your time. And if you have other questions for our elected officers, I would recommend emailing their office, send them a direct message. They'll be happy to answer your question and do the best that they can there. So thank you, Representative Tarnas, Senator Richards. Appreciate your time here this evening with us.
Thank you very much.
Aloha, everyone. Thank you so much for the invitation. Aloha.
Have a nice evening. All right, so I'm gonna share a couple, Mary Beth, when you're ready, we can share a couple of images here, just a couple of little updates before we move on to the main portion of our meeting. And we're looking at the time here a little bit. We just wanted to share a couple of announcements. If we could go to the number one here, no worries.
It's shared everywhere else.
That's okay.
Oh, not over there, sorry. We just got one here. Yes. All right, that's interesting. On the live streaming one over here, it is showing the proper one. Well, we can get around this here.
Is it showing? I can share it here.
I can just also read it. There we go. Now the screen has it.
Patty, can you see those online? You can download?
Yes, it's fine.
Okay. So just a couple of community announcements and updates. There is a beach cleanup this Saturday at Spencer Beach Park. This started at 8 a.m. A lot of information on there. And a lot of the stuff is posted up on our Facebook page too. So if you've missed it here, it's also up on there. Yeah, a lot of different groups are involved with this. Keep Puoko Beautiful, South Kuala Reef Alliance, and Big on Wave Riders Against Drugs. So the next one, if you don't mind, is the hazardous waste collection event, actually, that Senator Richards talked about. And this has two images here. The first one is just kind of a little brief about the event. And the second one shows what is being accepted and what's not being accepted for that event. So that's going to happen at Kalani District Park here this Saturday in Waimea. What's the time? The time is 8:30 to 3:30. Thanks, James. So those are the accepted items on there. And the next one is an event coming up for the Beamer Solomon Palau recital. And this is happening Saturday, March 11th. There is a ticket price for it. It's happening up at the Hawaii Preparatory Academy Gates Performing Arts Center. So on their campus, their high school campus there. And if you're interested in attending, just either call or leave a message, text that message that you'd like to attend and enjoy that event. Thanks, Mary Beth. The next one is a CERT training opportunity that's coming up a little bit later this month. Mary Beth's trying to keep up here, so.
Yeah, all right, coming.
So they're doing some online, there's some online CERT training, but they're also doing some in-person hands-on training at Waimea Elementary School. There are 2 days for that. I think those are both required for the certification, but we're always looking for more CERT members to support our communities during events, hazardous kind of weather events, and you name it. So the opportunity to look in, there's an email at hawaiicert@gmail.com. You can send your request there that you want to attend and join and become a CERT member for Waimea. That'd be fantastic. Next up is the Waimea Family Food Truck Friday, which is right around the corner here, St. Patty's Day, St. Patrick's Day. This is hosted at Keck Observatory on their property there, so thank you for doing that for the community. And then we'll post what as we always do, some of the vendors that show up at that event here. So thank you, and that's the evening of Friday, the 17th. And the last one is really just a congratulations, a whole maika'i to Auntie Rowan Hufford. As you probably see and probably heard, Auntie Rowan was selected as a 2023 National Heritage Fellow with the National Endowment of the Arts. So this is an amazing honor that she's received, a lifetime honor and recognition of her work in Hana Kapa, excuse me. And, you know, really, she's done a number of shows in our community through many years, and some recently as well. And we have pieces of hers in the Hawaii State Foundation of Arts, the Hawaii State Museum. So some amazing work, and she's been an amazing kumu in our community in teaching her skill and passing that knowledge on to the next generation. So congratulations, Auntie Rowan. Thank you so much.
If I can just, James, real
Yep.
quick, go back and share this one online. On
Oh, the hazardous
the
events one.
hazardous waste.
Yeah,
I don't think the people online.
that's okay. We do have them, that's right, Mary Beth,
Hey.
okay, yeah, we have them posted up on our Facebook page, so you can really capture them. I know we went through them kind of quickly here. But thank you for doing that, Mary Beth. So these, like I said, these happenings, events, and other community opportunities are, we try to post as many as we can up on our Facebook page. I wanted to share and highlight a couple of these for this month ahead. And as always, if you're part of an organization or know someone who wants to share out an event through our platform, we're happy to do that for you. And please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Yeah. So let's move on then, if that's okay. As we often do for our monthly meetings in recognizing community organizations and nonprofits, for the month of March, the Waimea Community Association will be spotlighting Na Kalai Wa'a. And to our shared enjoyment, we will also be spending the remainder of our evening, this meeting in growing our personal understandings of our voyaging canoes and the commitment the community members have to carry on our traditional navigation practices. And with a unique connection to Waimea and Kohala, we are eager to learn about these community efforts from our next guest. And with upcoming plans for the Makali'i voyaging canoe and an exciting opportunity to strengthen Hawaiian cultural practices, we're grateful to be joined by Master Navigator or Po Jad Paishan.
Oh, wahiti makali'i oh, wahiti ele kawai ke kai ho kele wala ino au he pulu anui
Oh, wahiti
e lau hoi mai kawai ke kai ika hoi e pai aku i ka aina la e pai mai la i ka aina au wahiti aloha mai kako. It is really an honor always to come into our community to share what has become a part of our community again, that a canoe that was built, that was started in 1994 at the old Quonset hut, the old Heritage Quonset hut that many of you remember. And that was completed 9 months later. At the time, many people within the voyaging community were utterly amazed that a cowboy town could build a voyaging canoe. Until they became aware and remembered that our people were connected from Mauka to Makaliʻi. That we weren't just one thing, but that we were connected to many different things because of the resources that are within our community that continually to be connected to what they do. That each of us brings a strength when we come together. He wa'a, he moku, he moku, he wa'a. Our canoe is our island. When we're out there past the horizon, out in the middle of the ocean, that's all we have. All we have is one another. All we have is our canoe and the resources that are with us. He moku, he wa'a. This island is our canoe. All we have is one another. All we have is the resources that are on this canoe. If we but remember that we come from people who are able to not just survive, but they're able to thrive with generations upon generations that stepped off of the deck of voyaging canoes, that came to call this place home, and then to thrive as a people. That we come from that. We're all connected to that. Each one of us that call this place home. So he wa'a, he moku, he moku, he wa'a is not just as some people will say an Olelo Noe'au, a saying. It's a way of life. For us, it's real. It continues for us in that sense that if I can step back a few years, when this young man came to Hawaii to be the navigator aboard a voyaging canoe that was launched, it would be named Hokulea. Peter Small Pianuk came to help us remember again that we were connected, that this ocean never separated us, this ocean always connected us. But somewhere along the line we forgot. He helped us to remember that we are part of a greater heritage that we all share in collectively. That you're not so different from me. I am not so different from you. That for Mao, when he was able to teach and share his knowledge with everyone aboard the deck of the voyaging canoe Hokulea in 1976, that started as a science experiment to see if it was even possible that our people could build voyaging canoes and then scale it across the ocean without any instruments and find the night. They left Maui on May 1st, 1976. 32 days later, sailing into Papayete, Tahiti. All of our families in Tahiti, there is such an outpouring of people that came into the bay because all they knew was that their families who had sailed and left generations in the past have now returned. Again, we're being connected. It was really Mao during this time that so much was happening in Hawaii. Many things were taking place. People were being displaced. We were trying to understand what was going on. And then the voyaging canoe came to bring us all a sense of hope, a sense of bigger understanding. Koho'olawe was taking place. Those things that happened on Koho'olawe. It was really Mao who used this a lot. Your past will dictate your future unless you change your present. Mao always told us that if we want to make a difference in the future, teach your babies, because they will be your future. If you teach your babies well, they will be the ones who will continue to lead us. This one who's clicking the button over here has been with Makali'i since she's 2 years old. Now she's our program coordinator for Na Kalai Wa'a. Her name is Le'ohu Colburn. I'm much more comfortable navigating and finding an island 2,400 miles away than clicking a button. So I so appreciate her. A verb Kawaihae Harbor gave us vision because he was able to show us what that voyaging canoe might have looked like. He was able to bring us an image of what it might look like. These young men at the time who stepped onto the deck of Makali'i, Uncle Billy Richards, Uncle Buffalo Keolana, Uncle Duki Kuahulu, Uncle Boogie Kalama, Shorty Bertelmann, John Cruz. These men were able to sail along with the rest of the crew with Mao in 1976. Again, to reconnect, not knowing how much that voyage would change their lives forever. Shorty, who was born and raised here in Waimea, along with his family, the Bertelmann family, his older brother, Clay Bertelmann, ended up also sailing aboard Hokulea. He was one time Pucker Ranch cowboy. Worked in the construction field as well. Very much a community member of Waimea. Had a desire to continue to pass on this experiences from the deck of the voyaging canoe, specifically to our community, Moku Island, back home here to the Big Island. Because at the time, Hokulea was the only voyaging canoe and she could not be everywhere that our islands wanted her to be at. So Clay had this desire to build a voyaging canoe. One, so that our community, again, would have a connection and understand what it is that we do from the deck of the voyaging canoes. And two, so that his younger brother, Shorty, would be able to have a canoe to navigate. Because Shorty ended up being Mao's first student here in Hawaii. So that his brother could continue his practice, to continue to study. We build a canoe for our community. We'll do two things. It will help our community to make the connection, and it will help his younger brother to continue to become the navigator that he is. The benefit that this community gave to us was because we had many kupuna that came to give Clay direction about what to do. Before you could build a voyaging canoe, you have to build a traditional canoe first. As much as Clay wanted to build the voyaging canoe first, that was the direction. This is one of our kupuna. Her name is Auntie Marie Solomon from Koala. Yeah. Auntie Marie, along with her husband, Uncle Sonny, many other kupuna that came to surround Clay and advise him on what he wanted to do. Again, build a traditional canoe first. This canoe would eventually come from Keoho Moka or Mauna Roa. This tree was felled by these men who would take about 3 years to build this canoe that was called Mauloa. This wa'a was finished and became the wa'a at Puhonua Honaunau. After the launching of this canoe, then the kupuna said, now that you built this canoe, now you are Kalai Wa'a. Now you are a canoe builder. Now go and build the voyaging canoe. As I said earlier, Maulua took these men 3 years to build that small coastal sailing canoe. All traditional, no modern tools. It took them that 3 years to remember all of those things that they needed to know, so that they could build this canoe. So this canoe celebrates 30 years as well. since she was created. Once this canoe was built, once she was launched, again, the kupuna told Clay, okay, go ahead. Now build a voyaging canoe. Makali'i, as I said earlier, was built in the Quonset hut. And once stood there. It was donated by Parker Ranch. Took us 9 months to build this voyaging canoe. And I do seriously mean it took us. I mean us, I mean this community. Because for those of us of Nā Kalai Wa'a, this community owns this canoe. Because it takes the community to build this canoe. We take care of it. Till the next ones. Till they take our place. Because it was the same thing that Mao had hoped in passing on his knowledge, that when he would be gone, that there would be others to take his place. This canoe is another baby of Makali'i. This canoe is called Kanehuna Moku, which is based in Kaneohe on Oahu. One of our crew members, Banika Hapea, Tanner, she continues to do her programs with the students that she works with on Oahu. They're actually having a canoe festival this weekend in Kualoa and Hakipu to celebrate a couple things. Hokule'a's birth, as well as all the other canoes that are birthed now in Hawaii. Makali'i continues. When we returned home from our maiden voyage in 1995, I said we launched Makali'i February 4th, 1995. We left for Tahiti on February 28th, 1995. To meet up with Hokule'a and Hawaii Loa that have also been built on Oahu that were in Tahiti. We left from Kawaihae. 28 days later, we joined them in Papaete, Tahiti. Then eventually sailing to the Marquesas to Nukuhiva and then returning home here. Since that time, Makali'i has been used as an educational tool. As Clay had wanted to continue to pass on this knowledge. We work with over something up to 6,000, 7,000 students a year. So that they can understand their connection. For us, it's not turning them into sailors. It's so that they understand that they do have a place. That their knowledge that they carry, the things that they're going to do will make a difference. You may not stand on the deck of the canoe, but you make a difference in this community that ensures that this canoe will continue to sail. That wa'a, this moku, continues to thrive because of where we come from. Many people always give us way too much attention. At least we feel that it's too much attention. You say, you guys do great. Look how far you guys sailed and did all these things. We can only do that because of where we come from. You want to see great things? Go look at our community. Go look at our families. We're just one person. But we stand together when we're on the deck of the canoe. But we're merely representing our communities and our families. We're able to continue to do these things on the moku. I just wanted to share with you folks, in the last two and a half years, because of this connection that we share to this area called Mahukona. Auntie Marie Solomon, who was in the photo earlier, when we were first building Makali'i, she took us to Mahukona and took us specifically to a place called Ko'a Heiau Holomoana. It's a navigational heiau that is located at Mahukona that her family had taken care of. And her plan, her initial was that we would, as Na Kalai Wa'a, be able to help to take care of the heiau and to continue pass on that knowledge. In the last 2.5 years, we've been working with an organization called Hawaii Land Trust. Hawaii Land Trust is an organization that helps communities that want to save aina, that either families or communities recognize as being significant and important to their areas. Hawaii Land Trust is helping us as a partner between Hawaii Land Trust, Na Kalai Wa'a, and the Kohala community. We're in the process right now of acquiring Mahu Kona and the 642 acres to remove it out of, because it's been slated for development. It's been under that for a number of years. But to take it out of development and to put it into conservation, so that all of our Kohala community can still access Mahu Kona as they have for generations, so that we can continue to use Mahu Kona as an educational place and to care for that navigational heiau and all the other sites that are there. So we just wanted to share a short little video with you of what we're doing at Mahu Kona. That's okay. Go. I've been jamming up this much.
You read everything, if we have a way, our phone.
for our community because of all that the community has done for us. We continue to do. Because it's what the next generation needs to understand. That we share in this. That we are merely the ones here now. And that hopefully we can do the things that we need to and make the difference now for their future. It's really in that sense that the chant that we shared with you in the beginning, Aue Ua Hitie, talks about the arrival of the canoe, about the landing. We're here. There's a verse that was added. E homai ka wa'a I ka po, I ke au. I ke au I ka po. E hua ka I holo I ke kai e ho'i mai ka wa'a Makali'i. That we go into the dark, we go into the light. We return to the light from the dark. Makali'i was built to continue to support our community. It is with the utmost respect that we come tonight to thank you for everything that you allow us to do, to continue to do. Really, now we're to the second generation in that are going after us, and they will continue because you've taught them well. It's our hope that we can continue to do this work for our community, and that at any time that you need us, we're just down the road. Yeah. But mahalo nui, mahalo, mahalo.
So while we move into a kind of a question, a kind of Q&A session with Uncle Chad, we also wanted to pass around the basket. This is our nonprofit spotlight of the month. So this will be going towards Na Kalai Wa'a. So if you're so inclined to give, thank you so much for your generosity, and we'll be sharing this with you. So thank you. So Nancy will be coming around a little basket, and Uncle Chad, we can take some questions if that's all right. So if anyone had any direct questions, yes, please.
I wondered, is this land now secure? It says it has to be secured by the end.
Yes. So right now, in fact, online, one of the people that may be doing it, I think Shay's online with Hawaii Land Trust. And definitely she could let you know more where we're at right now, but we're very close. We're very, very close. And we have to the end of this year to, as Shay put it in the video, that we're almost there to acquire it.
And is there any priority? Is that the community that you need help in any way?
Oh,
Besides going on a voyage?
no, definitely. You know, in any way that you can, the best thing would be to reach out to Hawaii Land Trust, because they are the ones that will be the landholders. Yeah. Nā Kalai Wa'a will be the stewards of Mahupana, along with the Kohala community. Definitely, as I said, Shay might be online there. Shay Kamakala, she's the head of the land protection for Hill, and specifically for this Mahupana project. Yeah, no, mahalo nui for the question. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about navigating by the stars, how you learned to do that?
How I learned was really from people like Nainoa Thompson, from Mao, Pialo, from Shorty Bertelmann, from Clay. The easiest thing to learn in the navigation that we do are the stars. Because they're always there. They're constant. We might not be able to see them because of weather at different times. But to understand the movement of the stars is the easiest thing. But obviously, again, you only can see the stars at night, right? In that sense that when they come out. So what do you do? What do you use during the day? You use the ocean swells, right? The direction of the swells that they come and move, which direction they're moving introduction to the sun that rises in the morning, or the sun setting, or where the moon is. So everything that surrounds us in the natural environment. Mao always called those things his friends, because they're constantly telling him things. All right. But as you build a relationship with those things, like your friends, you might see your friend and your friend just looks at you a certain way and you get it. It's the same thing for us in our relationship to our environment. We call it kilo, observation of looking at things. To be able to notice those subtle changes in everything helps you to navigate. Right. So those rising and setting points of the stars are usually the quickest things you can learn. All the other things takes time, because you need to be in the environment to learn all of those subtle things. Is that helping?
That's very fascinating. It seemed like when you first started doing it, you might make lots of mistakes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's why you have your teachers, right? And when we would first start to go and observe the stars, Mao doesn't talk a lot. So he would just go out. We would be up here on the Moku Road, out, and we'd be out there like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. That's usually the best time to look at the stars. And we would go out and we'd stand next to him. And this is what you got for 3 hours. And then at the end, he'd go, okay, here we go. So it was more so, okay, what were we just looking at? What was that? As you have other teachers, someone like Nainoa is he's very engaging in that sense. So everything that he learns, he wants to engage with you, to talk with you, and to teach you. So we're very fortunate that we have Mao graduated 5 of us into this side of teaching to pass on the knowledge that he shared with us. So Nainoa Thompson, Shorty Bertelmann, Bruce Blankenfield, Kalepo Bye-Bye, who passed over a year ago, and myself. But it's really to take that knowledge and to make sure that it continues. But it was really the reason why Mao, as I shared earlier, why Mao said to teach our babies. Because our babies will. When Mao started learning to become a navigator, he was 3 years old. By the time he was 16, he was recognized as a master.
David Gomes. I study a lot of ancient archaeology, and I believe that Noah, you're following the traditions of Noah. He was not only a shipbuilder, but he was probably the owner of a shipyard. And to build a big ship, you first had to build the little ones. And I'm sure that he had many ships and that they traveled the ocean 12,000 years ago before the flood. And so you are continuing his tradition. I'm sure that he traveled to Atlantis, to Mu, which is in the Pacific, and to all of the islands of the Pacific, and as well as what we consider the New World, but then was the old world to everybody.
Oh, yeah.
So you are continuing the traditions of Noah.
Mahalo. Mahalo.
Go ahead. You have a wonderful video on your website, The Call of the Canoe. And so I could recognize the chant. It has struck me as a Canadian that one of the strengths is there's a oral tradition that taps energy. Would that be a reasonable assumption?
Yes, definitely.
And that you had to learn how to build from the energy of the chanting that allowed it to transfer.
Oh, yeah.
And to the gentleman's question, you learn from the energy of the observations in order to wayfind.
Yes. It's the highest one.
That is something that we who use written seem to have. If there's one thing that you have brought to me, that's what we lost when we began to write. It's not an either or.
Oh, yeah,
It's not saying that, but
If I could share one of the first things that Mao shared with me. Because the first time I was sitting with him and studying with him, I wanted to remember everything he was saying. So I was doing this. He looked at me and he told me, what happens if you lose that paper? I just looked at him. I got it. Put the paper away. And then take it in. It's those traditions that we share through oral tradition, through chant, that energy continues. And many times you're very fortunate if that energy continues to be passed on from generation to generation.
and that's what was lost
Oh, yeah.
and can be, but you've demonstrated is that it's not lost because energy is not lost. You just have to chant it back. Yeah.
Back into it. Yeah. Mahalo. Mahalo.
I don't know if I missed hearing you say what's next for Makali'i.
Oh. What's next for Makali'i? As for many of us, during the pandemic, Makali'i sat out of the water for the last 2 years. She's been at Mahukona in the warehouse, and she's been well taken care of. We were planning to put her back into the waters in Kawaihae last weekend, but due to the weather, we delayed. It was planned to go in this weekend, but due to the we're delayed again. So we're hoping she'll go back in next weekend. But we'll see. We'll see what the weather does for us. You know, it's so many people that come together who help. It's in the movement. I'll introduce Clay Bertelmann as well. But we're always learning, right? And there are uncles that have always helped us to move the canoes. When this weather started coming, they're the ones who called and said, probably no, not a good time. Because he's the one driving this double hull canoe from Mahukona to Kawaihae on a trailer about 2 o'clock in the morning with police escort. But in case she starts doing this on a trailer, the possibility of the safety of everyone and possibly trying to explain why there's a double hull canoe blocking traffic. $10
Kind of like a tree.
Right, kind of like a tree, right? But it's really in that sense that because we have so many great community resources that all want the same thing. They want to see the canoe back in the water, but they want to do it very safely so that it can continue to do its purpose, to continue to educate. Chad.
What would be the possibility of you having a launch wharf or a launch point at Mahukona? I mean, I know there'd be a lot of red tape with the state, but what would be the possibility of having a place to launch the canoe because you guys have control of 600 acres?
I think it could be something to be possible because like you say, so much has gone on in Mahukona in the past. So it'll just be something to work with the community about seeing what could be done, you know, so. Yeah, no, people have asked about if, you know, would be something in the future that we start to launch Makali'i out of Maui.
There's so much liability when the canoe is not on the road.
Oh, yeah. Great. Thank you for the question.
Would OHA be receptive to the building of something like that?
I'm not sure. I've never approached them about something like that, but I think it would be a great question to bring to them, to our representatives. I said, it's just like this, right? When we can get together and sit down and talk about what can we do? Right? What's possible? What do you to do this? I think.
That's interesting that he said that because there is a bill asking OHA to build in different places of the state cultural places. Yeah.
Oh.
So. You better talk to them.
Ring, ring. Oh, yeah. Mahalo nui.
Yes, you know, in a prior presentation, you talked about the first voyages and then the current voyages and how you supplied the recent one with food from here.
Oh, sure. You know, as Ryan was talking about, one of the presentations that I came and talked at, you know, our past voyages, many of them on a voyaging canoe, the food on the canoe was something that Mao always talked about. He didn't kind of understand it, but the main food that was on the canoe was anything that you can find in KTA, Safeway, Foodland. Anything that was in a can, you can find it on the canoe. Probably the most popular thing was Vienna sausage, fucking beans. Yeah, those were the things that you could find on the canoe. It ain't the healthiest thing for us, and we've come to understand those things. A few years back, Makali'i's last voyage that we were preparing for was to sail Makali'i from here to Mokumanamana in the Northwest Hawaiian Islands, Necker, Atoll. But because of this side of the food, Hawaii was involved in a program with the school gardening network. And I got asked to go and talk there at one time. And the only thing I know about school gardening is that food, because I like food. So if our ancestors traveled here on their canoe in the Stone Age and were able to provision their own canoes, they come here and continue to thrive as a people, not just survive. In this great modern day and age, is it even possible that we can provision one canoe from our island? Is it possible? For some reason, they asked me to come back, talk another time. I asked them the same thing.
Well, they were silent.
Oh, they were, yeah, it was almost like this, they were silent, but they were silent, and then they asked me to come back and talk again, but I asked them the same question: is it possible that in this great modern day and age, when we got everything at our fingertips, could we provision one canoe? We took on the challenge. We had 10 schools from on island here, along with a number of other community organizations. We didn't tell them what to grow. We said, you know your aina best. Grow what goes best in your place. Whatever that is that you can provide for the canoe, mahalo nui. We'll take it. By the time we left Kawaihae in June of 2019 for our sail, we were 100% provisioned from this island. It made a huge difference because I had mentioned to our crew members that we're only taking things that was grown here. One crew member asked, well, what about rice? You growing rice? No. No. But it came to us to really understand that if we can feed 16 people 3 meals a day plus snacks, and you go on a voyage for a month and a half and come home healthy and thriving. And coming back home and going, we cannot go back to the canned spam and the Vienna sausage. We like continue to eat the kalua that the kids made in the imo. We like eat the chicken, luau. The kids raise the chickens. They grew the luau. We like continue to eat the pa'iai that the kids grew and they made for us. It was special for us for a lot of our crew members on the voyage. Every time they opened up something for a day box, I don't know if a Dinty Moore or spam can never had this, but everything that we took out, there was a note from those kids that made that and said, we hope you guys are enjoying this. Right? He wa'a, he moku, he moku, he wa'a. That's real for us.
Thank you. I'm sure we could spend a lot more time with all of you. Lots to learn, lots to grow from. So thank you for your leadership. Thank you for sharing with us in the community. Well, we're going to close our meeting here. That's right with everyone. It's gone a little bit over, but that's amazing what we could connect with and touch on and learn from. So I really appreciate everyone's attention and eagerness to learn and grow. Mahalo nui to all of our presenters for joining us here this evening, for taking the time to update our community and our attendees here in person, and for welcoming these opportunities to engage with the community. And thank you to our viewers online for joining us on the live stream, and attendees able to join us here in Tutu's house, of course. We're grateful for all of your support, everyone. Mahalo to our friends at Tutu's house and for opening the space for our community meetings. And welcome to revisit and rewatch these recordings up on our YouTube channel or on our Facebook page. If you'd like to go back and watch everything Uncle Chad talked about and some of the intricacies that our state legislators talked about too. So that's always good to go back and rewatch some of those things. For our next month's meeting, we'll be joined by the Hawaii County Office of Housing and Community Development Administrator Susan Coons. And we'll aim to have our 2 county council members join us as well to provide some updates on the council. And on behalf of the Waimea Community Association Board, I wish you good health, be well, aloha. Thanks everyone. Have a good night.